Well, they come as if from outer space in a variety of weird guises. Defender, Pac-Man, asteroids. To fans, they represent a challenge. But to critics, as Terry Drinkwater reports, they are a menace.
Pit yourself against the computer. Millions, mostly teenagers, have. So many, in fact, that psychologists are beginning to worry that some youths are becoming spaced out on the space games. Long hours at the screens, psychologists say, can lead to extreme introversion. Youngsters communicating in a video fantasy land and not with their peers or parents.
It's not addictive in the sense of a drug dependency where you're going to have withdrawal symptoms, but it is physically, you can become physically dependent upon it because you get an arousal and then a relaxation response. It's the same as a roller coaster or gambling or playing cards.
Psychologists remind us every younger generation has to have something to scare adults. Right now, all of this is certainly it.
Arcade culture, especially that of the 80s, was honestly a magical setting. So many unspoken rules and regulatory ideations. From the innate ability of the players to keep track of the quarters lined up on the control panel, to the near obsessive want to add your unique 3-letter handle to the high score list, it was truly a place that broke social and community ideations. It was a place of true acceptance, however brief it may have been. Or at least that's what it felt like to me in Canada. Japan seemed to have a very different culture. If you can get over the ridiculous typos and unnecessary punctuation, Medium.com has a nice retrospective that chronicles the differences between the cultures in a non-judgmental way. But one of the things that struck me was that in Japan, it is considered bad form to even continue in an arcade game, because you are keeping one of the better players from having their turn. For a small amount of money, people can get hours in the arcade by watching the top skilled players and by using their money wisely. Arcade game design is laughed at for being quarter munchers. That's only because you were never supposed to put so many quarters in. You were supposed to never continue. In Japan, it's actually bad form to do so. It's a waste of money for you because you're not good enough to keep proceeding in the game if you've lost one of the initial levels. We know video games are used for a plethora of reasons, including but not limited to entertainment, but also as a treatment for ADHD, government recruitment, research tools, etc. I mean, one of the most notable, systematic attempts to use a video game to understand human cognition and performance was the Learning Strategies program, funded by the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency. Out of this project came the arcade game Space Fortress in 1981, which was developed by cognitive psychologists and designed to require skills such as memory, attention, dual tasking ability, and psychomotor control and speed. For anyone who that didn't quite resonate with, the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, that's DARPA. DARPA is one of the most secretive and intriguing elements of the United States government, and a topic I'll be covering in the future. But as a spoiler, there are so many conspiracy theories surrounding DARPA, so it's actually feeling like it's a larger issue than not. Especially when we consider that Space Fortress was released in 1981, the same year the Polybius legend takes place. I'll get less excited about that in a moment, but let's also acknowledge that the US government has officially and outwardly used video games as a tool for recruiting teenagers. I'm looking at you, America's Army. And that's not me being paranoid, it's literally a f***ing recruitment tool. But it's not all nefarious. There are some good things too. Endeavor RX is the first video game approved by the US Food and Drug Administration as a non-medicinal option for improving symptoms associated with ADHD. I mean, that's pretty cool, and the efficacy seems to be pretty high. Honestly, the list goes on, but I think the biggest takeaway is that video games can be and are used for more than just entertainment, and the ideas presented within the Polybius myth are not actually that far-fetched. The US government has used video games as a tool, and though not definitively provable, DARPA specifically, a government organization, has been linked to mind control research. So we know the legend takes place in 1981 in Portland, Oregon. We also know from the article regarding Brian Morrow's tummy issues that the specific location most commonly associated with the legend is the now defunct Malibu Grand Prix Corporation, which opened their doors in 1979 and included a racetrack, a video arcade, and a snack bar. But why Portland, Oregon? Was there anything special about it geographically? Most accounts make it feel just like any other 80s neighborhood. This Reddit post explains the feel. The punk rock movement was absolutely in full swing, arcade culture was at its peak, children walked carefree through the streets, there was a cult up the street. I know this isn't 100% relevant right now, but government agencies did have an eye on arcades. This one is a paper written by Sergeant Ronald George Robinson, RCMP, gaming specialist, on the history of the law of gaming in Canada. I mean, the guy was a bloody RCMP gaming specialist, and if one country has an interest in gaming in arcades, they all do. Believe me, Canada isn't exactly a trailblazer. The company named in the creation of the game in most accounts is Sinneslotion. The word is described by writer Brian Dunning as not quite idiomatic German, which is a word constructed outside the norms of German language usage and grammar. It's a compound word meaning sense delete or sensory deprivation. Its meanings are derived from the German words Sinne, senses, and Lotion, to extinguish or to delete, though the way they are combined is not standard German. So is Sinneslotion a real company? That seems pretty relevant here. I mean, there's a website dedicated to a modern download of the game, and an absolutely brief history of the game. And because I understand there's no real information to be gained from the website, I figured I'd go ahead and do some armchair investigation regardless. Domains by Proxy LLC is an internet company started by the founder of GoDaddy, Bob Parsons. Domains by Proxy offers domain privacy services through partner domain registrars such as GoDaddy and Wild West Domains. And I mean, that's pretty on point in terms of the mythos, but it doesn't mean anything. The website is clearly not meant to be a real company. I did pick and poke around a little bit more, but honestly, aside from a quick chuckle here and there, there's nothing to report. But a website does not a company make, so let's do that lookup. I feel like no matter what I search for, this is not a US or Canadian company. However, it is a real company. A real, mostly dormant company. Registered in 2020. So another absolute nothing burger. The company name was registered to Benjamin Allen Grant, Adamore Barn, Ridgeway, Welland Garden City, England. It's definitely not a German company, definitely hasn't been around since the legend began, although to be honest, since there's no real trail of the legend before 1998, I'm going to give some leeway on that one. I mean, I'm not giving 39 years of leeway, but plus or minus up to 5 years I think is pretty reasonable. But I'll go out on a limb and say that the company that supposedly made the original arcade game either isn't a real company, or was completely made up for the sake of a slightly better story. I mean, I know I've said this a bunch of times in this video, but the legend takes place in 1981. But again, there wasn't any real mention of it before 1998, so I'd imagine even in an absolutely perfect world where there's no disinformation at all, I'm 100% sure that in a 17-year period, some things are going to be misremembered. And that's the one thought that I have that actually keeps me believing and also keeps me extremely skeptical. And that's the worst part about all of this. I don't think we can trust any of the information at all. It's not like your child's birthday or your anniversary or the celebration of your divorce day. It's a fucking vague recollection of some guys in suits looking at an arcade game a few times, right? And maybe some nightmares afterwards. Honestly, I've researched this so much I don't know what to believe. And at this stage, I'm not even sure if I'm being sarcastic or not. Okay, so why would a game like this be created? I mean, we've already gone over the f***ing plethora of reasons video games exist beyond entertainment, but what would the real reason for such a game to exist be? Quick refresher. We know video games are for entertainment, therapy, government recruitment, etc. They're entertaining, but they're tools also. We know the US government has used video games for target training as early as 1980 with the Bradley Trainer, recruitment in the form of America's Army, team and combat training with Full Spectrum Warrior, etc. A lesser-known government use dates back to the 1960s with the War Game Stage, simulation of total atomic global exchange, designed as a political propaganda piece. And as any conspiracy theorist is fully aware, the US government has dabbled in mind control and other similarly styled experiments. I'll get to that a little later in the video. So there's a very real potential for a large part of this legend to have basis in reality. That's not the same as saying it's real, but it just isn't as outlandish as one might think. So this part is going to be difficult. What are the actual origins of this urban legend? Months of researching and I still don't really know. Part of the problem is that of morphology. Legends change and grow with time. Facts change, embellishments happen. I mean, this website claims that the cabinet was in hundreds of arcades, not just a handful. Others say it ended up killing people. Even the sources online right now don't agree on everything. So I think our only recourse is to look at some people who may have had a part in the development of the legend, assuming this is a legend. So this is as good a place as I need to cut the video. Again, I didn't write the script to be segmented like this, so I apologize for the abrupt cut. Next episode, I drone on for way too long about Stephen Roach, primarily, with the usual tangents. Link downstairs to part 1 for those who are interested. And I've heard your cries. No more AI-generated footage. I'll stick with stock. Love to all.